Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Sonic Colors for the Nintendo DS version. So, last time, we essentially did manage to explore into Tropical Resort by not only tackling through 2 acts. In addition to that, we also did manage to went into the first special stage and able to actually obtain ourselves the first Chaos Emerald. In addition to that, we also did manage to went into not 1, but 3 missions, and of course we somehow bump into Cream the Rabbit alongside with Cheese the Chow, as well as this separate Chow as well. And finally, most notably though, is about the fact that we did somehow take on the first boss in the game. So yeah, everything else will become to expect basically. So today, for this video, is that we're going to be continuing things on and move on to the next planet we can able to now explore. And that's what appears to be in today's scenario, is that we are about to be going into Sweet Mountain. And it's filled to the brim with a lot of sugary stuff, which, as what it says on here, might be not good for your teeth, which is understandable, because concerning for the fact that, well, obviously though, with chocolate, sweets, and all that stuff, it's made out of sugar. So, although, about the fact that I was originally trying to able to actually go into Starlight Carnival, but technically we've already did that scenario from the likes of Sonic Colors Ultimate, thanks to Sonic the Hedgehog, already did manage to able to point that out ever since in 2022. And speaking of which though, I can't believe by saying this is about the fact it's been 2 years ago since we've last did our Let's Play of something related to Sonic Colors, since Sonic Colors Ultimate for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, /Xbox Series X/S, as well as PC Steam, and of course the Nintendo Switch. So relatively speaking, it was about the fact that at the very least we are super duper glad that we're now going to be jumping into the DS version of Sonic Colors, as you probably already know. And also, as you can tell, since every time whenever you first time experiencing one of those levels, specifically, for example, we did somehow manage to jump into Sweet Mountain, and as you can see, we've met up with the forms of a new Wisp, which is actually a DS exclusive Wisp, known as Red Flame. So, or specifically, Red Burst. So, relatively speaking, that was about the fact that we can now use that specific color power, which we'll dive into that as soon as we get into Act 1 of Sweet Mountain. So, every time whenever you do manage to able to absorb the color power, obviously though, the game tells us we need to view the tutorial, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself with this particular tutorial bit. So let's jump right into Sweet Mountain. So of course we'll start things off with Act 1, and that's what it says on the top screen right here, that obviously though, like I mentioned this before, in order to able to get ourselves our next Chaos Emerald, or should I say the next special stage we're going to be jumping into, we need to obtain 50 rings, and then you have to look after your 50 rings count until you basically finish the stage. So anyways, let's hop into this. So anyways, few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date, of course, there is the 18th of August today, in some cases in 2024 today, and I'm afraid to tell you for this point, guys, is about the fact that for some odd reason, my laptop is actually suffering the forms of some bit of lag going on. Maybe I'll try to fix that at some point until tomorrow, just before when Maxi will definitely go back onto playing Luigi's Mansion 2 from the likes of Luigi's Mansion 2 HD for the Nintendo Switch, alongside with the fact that Ray the Flying Squirrel will definitely need to come back on playing The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening remake on Switch, so just in case about the fact that we can able to try to sort out with that lag problem. Well, thankfully for the most part it still works, and especially noticeable concerning for the fact that now we've got ourselves our new fresh battery, so this means about the fact that we don't have to worry about the massive drainage battery problem ever since in journey forms of whatever we got back into the UK during that time, that we've actually come across into that massive battery problem, which I suppose we'll let Maxi will talk more about that if he comes back onto playing through Luigi's Mansion 2, we're able to actually tackling through the next mission in Gloomy Manor. So anyways though, so let's talk about the forms of the Red Burst Wisp, where basically though, in order to able to try to move around a bit, obviously though is about the fact that you can able to actually move around with the by pressing the directional pad, And then if you try to hold down either the B button or the A button, depending on your actual preference, to actually activate the color power, is that you can actually not only try to do multiple jumps, but also if you try to come across into a lot of enemies, you're able to actually act out as a screen nuke, where basically though you can actually destroy as many of those enemies as you could, and also you can actually break certain other bits here and there, like that particular chocolate as we somehow come across into earlier. So even then though, yeah, it seems pretty cool to actually introduce into ourselves the red burst wisp, which eventually continues onwards whenever they somehow manage to bring that wisp back, not only for the likes of Sonic Generations for the 3DS, but as well as in that, there's also Sonic Lost World for the 3DS, and of course Team Sonic Racing for multiple platforms, and you name the rest of it though. So either way though, sometimes again it takes a bit of a while to get used to with the actual specific control scheme of how the red wisp did somehow occurred with that particular red burst in particular. So even then though, yeah, you get the idea for that point. So also I love the fact that every time if you go to a jelly right here, or in some cases if you jump on the jelly, that if you try to stomp, you're able to actually get yourselves a good bounce height. So, and yeah, every once in a while though, there's going to be a lot of Eggman's bombs everywhere, just to ensure for the fact that you try to avoid them at all costs. Potentially speaking, I was about the fact that luckily you can to protect yourself if you somehow activate the red wisp. So naturally though, you don't get harmless to the explosion. So anyway, let's move on now to the second special stage. So as a result, the more we try to do some more special stages, it can get pretty difficult later on. So, I mean, for the most part though, it's about the fact that I will admit though right away, is that I really love the background music of this particular special stage, not only because it's quite exhilarating, but it's also about the fact that I just love the fact that, like I said before, every time whenever we go into the next bunch of laps, ranging from lap 1 and lap 2 as well as lap 3, basically though, the music will decide to speed up. So anyway, and also something's worth noting for is about the fact you notice with that particular rainbow orbs that we keep on obtaining. Well, basically though, that gives us double the amount of points that we somehow accumulated, and there's also the 5 rainbow orb as we somehow got as well, which I'm pretty sure it actually gives us 5 additional orbs depending on what lap you go into. So anyway, nothing else I can say about it. So yeah, as you can tell about the fact that if you dare manage to try to obtain the, let's just say a checkerboard pattern with that particular orb as we somehow touch, basically though, it just somehow gets even more colored orbs right at the very end of that particular lap. So because of that though, however, if you don't manage to collect quite enough of those colored orbs, obviously though, much like any other Sonic games for special stages department, it kicks you out. Although, unlike the forms of how it does it in Sonic Rush though, basically though, much like the forms of how it does it in Sonic Rush Adventure with these Johnny races, basically though, you can to actually retry the special stage as many times as you want, although you need to be quick on that though, because if you don't be too fast enough, if you somehow failed the special stage attempt, obviously though, you have to go all the way back to the beginning of that particular process. So, and this is where we come across into ourselves these spike balls now. So if you dare touch these spike balls, then obviously though, you will lose your corresponding colored orb. So because of that though, that's how the spring decides to come into play. So now we need to get 85 of those yellow colored orbs now. So either way though, and there's also another thing worth mentioning though actually, is that one of those films in particular that already came out ever since in about, let's just say 16 days ago, that's what appears to be, of course, Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, which I'll talk more about that until for a later time. Well, to be more specifically, if we decide to actually do some missions after we're done with the forms of Act 2 of Sweet Mountain. So even then though, that's as far as I can try to oh jeez, yeah, that happened right there, if you dare touch these spike balls. So I think you'll lose about 10 orbs to be more specifically. I mean, relatively speaking though, we still managed to, well, become flawless at it. So naturally, we were able to get ourselves the next Chaos Emerald, but this time, it appears to be the yellow Chaos Emerald. So, whilst unlike before, that you get that yellow Chaos Emerald on the 3rd zone on Sonic Rush, alongside with the forms of, well, potentially speaking of, if you're trying to deal with the 3rd Johnny Race in Sonic Rush Adventure, and you pretty much know exactly what I'm talking about if I decided able to mention about not only the Sonic Advance trilogy, but as well as the Sonic Rush duology games. So that's as far as I was expecting. So anyway, so once we're done with Act 1, not only we can move on to Act 2, but also we can able to technically try to do Mission 1 early on. But of course, I'll save these missions for later, because what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be focusing on 2 regular acts from now on though, and then afterwards though, I'm about to be trying to show off every single missions before we jump into the boss fight. So that's how the entire structure of this Let's Play is going to play out to be, especially concerning for the fact that, like I said before, I try my best able to actually show off most of this stuff anyway. So anyways though, speaking of which though, is about the fact that I do able to actually found out about the fact that when it comes to the forms of the actual Nintendo Switch financial results, about the fact that I believe the next one is going to be, at some point, it's going to be on November in 2024 for this next Nintendo Switch financial results. So potentially speaking, I was about the fact that maybe we'll hear more about that until whenever it gets to a point, until maybe they'll try to add it in. Not only for the sake of the forms of Nintendo World Championship NES Edition, but as well as the forms of Elmo the Smiley Man, and of course the Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom or something like that. Now, as far as I'm aware, I don't think they'll try to mention about the forms of not only Super Mario Party Jamboree sales numbers, alongside with Mario Luigi Brothership sales numbers as well, because I'm pretty sure they'll try to save that particular adding additional games onto its financial results until, to be more specifically, when it gets to the point until likely they'll save it up for the likes of by the end of 2024, and possibly they'll try to able to actually get that particular results in until sometime in February in 2025 if possible. So either way though, that's just for my predictions anyway though, alongside with the forms of course, the next Nintendo Switch Lite, which is of course the Hyrule Edition, to go alongside with the release of The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. So yeah, you get the idea how that's gonna brings us to be. So also, as far as I'm aware, back in during forms of our Let's Play of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games DS version, that someone said in the comments about the fact that apparently though, there's going to be yet another unfortunate news that is about to be happening in the future anyway. Now, as a result, one of those TV channels called Boomerang, that particular channel did manage able to contain certain shows, ranging from What's New Scooby-Doo, alongside with the forms of the Garfield Show, as well as the forms of course, Tom and Jerry, the old school Tom and Jerry, alongside with the forms of other counterparts of Tom and Jerry TV series, ranging from Tom and Jerry Tales, as well as the forms of the Tom and Jerry Show, based off on the sake of the forms of 2014 series, as far as I'm aware. Unfortunately though, for what I've just found out, that it's going to get shut down soon, which means that you won't be able to see Boomerang on TV ever again. And I was like, oh, I have nothing else to say, especially concerning for the fact that I know for the fact that the streaming services is actually going to get a lot more popular these days, but I was a little bit baffled about the fact that whenever I heard about it, and as a result, it's going to be very, very sad indeed, especially concerning for the fact I do honestly remember seeing Tom and Jerry cartoons a lot back in the day, during the forms within some time in 2010 or 2011 to be more specifically, when I was with Sonic and Mario and all the other gang as far as I'm aware. But it's just about the fact that it's going to be super duper unfortunate that one of those TV channels is about to be ceased to exist. So because of that though, yeah, it's pretty sad and also kind of sucks as well. So anyway, so now we're done with the forms of Act 2, now let's move on to, of course, certain missions we can tackle. So I wonder what specific Sonic's friends we might bump into this time, because previously though, like I said before, that we've bumped into Cream the Rabbit last time, so I wonder what we're going to be bumping into this time. So anyways though, and there's also another thing's worth mentioning for anyway. Oh, okay, I did not expect that Blaze the Cat did show up, so I suppose, yeah, long time no see, Blaze, ever since on Blaze's Dimension in Sonic Rush Adventure, especially that she did clearly mention the Soul Emerald did somehow manage to transport her to the forms of, you know, Eggman's amazing, or in some cases, Eggman's incredible interstellar amusement park or something like that. So anyways, let's see what the mission has to say for this point, and it may look like we're about to be able to well, seriously able to try to get ourselves a good boost start by letting the actual, well, there we go. So, potentially we need to deal with all these enemies, though. So, because of that, though, sometimes, though, like I said before, I might not be the best, when it comes to trying to deal with certain missions in this game, though, because, well, fundamentally speaking, it's about the fact that, unlike in Sonic Rush Adventure, that usually, for I can tell, that Ray the Flying Squirrel only tackles specific missions for the sake of collecting every single Soul Emeralds as Blaze, as well as to able to try to get certain progression into the story. Whilst in here, though, I will able to actually just try to able to complete them as much as I can. Well, potentially speaking of, all of them, mind you. Because usually, every time whenever you do manage to complete certain missions or something like that, not only do you unlock the new events, which I suppose it could be something more related to, are you kidding me? I got myself the lame C rank. Well, nothing even bad compared to the forms of the D rank, though. I mean, obviously, though, if you let the time almost run out, you get less time bonus. So, because of that, though, that way, it's actually pretty stingy, and on top of that, what makes the actual getting S ranks a lot difficult as it seems, especially with certain missions involved. Not only do you need to be absolute perfection, but it's also about the fact that you need to, like, rush through most parts. So, yeah, that's a little bit of a bummer. Especially concerning, I felt it was a little bit of a bummer too, that Blaze was not playable in Sonic Colors on the DS version. So, kind of a missed opportunity, but it knows what it is, I guess. So, either way, so now we're done with Mission 1, and now let's move on to Mission 2, where I think we might also come across into someone else that we might be too familiar with. So, I wonder what we're going to be bumping into. Oh, snap! It's Silver the Hedgehog! It's no use! Although, to be fair though, I'm pretty sure once we get to Mission 3, I'm pretty sure that both Silver and Blaze will meet up again, ever since in Sonic 06, despite the fact that Sonic 06 is not canon, at least for what I can tell anyway, despite, you know what I'm talking about, with all its confusing time travel elements, and you probably need the rest of it. So because of that though, I believe the next mission we're about to be hop into is to rescue certain wisps. So ever since in Journey Forms of Tropical Coast, Mission 1. So yeah, I'm actually up for it. So anyway, so let's get into the forms of the next topic at this point, and that's what appears to be about the fact that recently, like what, I'm pretty sure that, Ray the Flying Squirrel, or Maxie has already mentioned about this, is that, as you probably already know, one of those films in particular, Deadpool and Wolverine, has recently reached to $1 billion box office, which is doing pretty well, and as far as I'm aware, is actually recently onto the top 50 box office highest grossing films of all time so far. Like, relatively speaking, it's now onto, I would say, 48th place position, at least as far as I'm aware. It did certainly beat out not only Alice in Wonderland in 2010 film, but as well as Finding Dory in 2016. So potentially speaking, eventually at some point it will try to beat out not only Despicable Me 3, but as well as the films of Jurassic Park in 1993, and maybe eventually the Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, I think is what it says anyway. And maybe also eventually with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, at least as far as I'm assuming so. But then again, we'll talk more about that, if assuming about the fact that if Maxie will mention more about the forms of the actual box office updates for certain films recently. So, anyway, there's also another thing's worth mentioning for, actually. When it comes to the forms of, while looking up on the forms of, the most recent Netflix film at the time, which is, of course, Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, and for I've double-checked on the reviews part, as well as the forms of the film itself, oh god, I'm not... Well, let's just say this right from the start, though. I would say that Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, is by far the worst SpongeBob movie I've ever seen by far. At least I give Sponge on a Run some credit for when it comes to its unique visual style, despite the plot is basically a rehash of one of those episodes from the SpongeBob SquarePants TV series based off from, let's just say, season 4 for instance, and I'm just so disappointed with that particular film as far as looking upon the forms of Saving Bikini Bottom. The Sandy Cheeks movie, especially, not only does it reviewed so badly, but it's also about the fact that, my lord, the CGI, when it comes to one of those villains, oh my god, what have they done? I mean, I get it about the fact that they're trying to go for a different tone or something, but my god, the editing for the CGI, it's just awful. I mean, what did they do to that? I mean, I honestly do prefer looking back on the first SpongeBob movie any day, just because, not only because it was iconic at the time, but it's also about the fact that, well, I just enjoyed the first one a little bit more than, the most recent one, which is, you know, oh my god. I just have nothing else to say. And even then though, whenever I looked upon the reviews of it though, everyone really despised that film so much, myself included. Well, mind you, I'm probably not going to mention any spoilers for the time, but I might just have to say this right about now. Avoid the Sandy Cheeks movie, Saving Bikini Bottom at all times, because potentially speaking, I've got nothing else to say. It's even bad enough about the fact that, well, it was on Netflix though, so that's all I can really think about it. But it's just about the fact that I couldn't imagine if that was going to be released on the big screen, that would be a huge box office disappointment or something like that. Well, I couldn't imagine, but either way though, let's just change the subject. Let's just change the subject, please, because I just want to try to focus for now when it comes to playing this game from now on. Especially as you can tell, we're now on to mission 3. That basically we now need to deal with the forms of, you know, trying to utilize the red burst wisp. So naturally we can able to actually just once again keep on collecting certain clock items, so just in case, you know, to increase time and all that, and also trying to avoid as many of those bombs as you could, which sometimes I will admit though right away, it's not as easy as it looks, especially concerning for the fact that, well, generally speaking though, unlike the Wii version, like I said before, each and every single levels in this game does manage to able to feature 6 acts per level in the Wii version, including Sonic Colors Ultimate. I thought it was a little bit odd about the fact that when it comes to Sonic Colors Ultimate, doesn't seem to able to bring anything new when it comes to new content alike, aside from Rival Race, in addition to customization options. But aside from that, it's just basically a Wii game, except, well, everything's upscaled, and on top of that, it does have some glaring issues when it first launched, likely also for the lighting, and on top of that, bunch of glitches has been found, which eventually it did somehow get patched for it, thankfully, so that way you don't have to necessarily try to worry about a lot of frustration of glitches ever since in not only for Sonic 06, but as well as Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, even though despite the fact that, well, it has been a very long while actually since we've last played one of those bad Sonic games since in the beginning of this year and the midway portion of the year so far. Well, potentially speaking of, that's as far as I can say about it. So anyways, let's move on now to the boss fight in Sweet Mountain. Again, I apologize for my tongue twist in the end, folks, when it comes to commentary anyway, because yet again, the flies keeps on showing up in my room at this point. So because of that though, yeah, I'll definitely have to try to sort out with my tongue situation, because I'm still a frog after all. I mean, potentially speaking, I'm sure I'll ask Kermit the Frog will able to actually try to sort things out for me at the very least. So, anyways though, here we go on to the next boss fight. Now, the biggest difference is this time is that rather than just trying to able to start the actual battle off by going through and navigate through the ship this time around, so instead we can able to actually fight against this captain thing for reals. Although except the fact that the biggest difference is now that it's now basically taking place with that particular very obscure arena, and on top of that, the actual ship now appears in the background as opposed to the forms of how it does it when you're trying to able to get onto the ship. And every once in a while though, we can able to deal twice the amount of damage if we try to utilize the actual wisp, And by the way, something's worth noting for, yes indeed, in order to actually get your color power, you have to simply just boost at the actual weak spot, and potentially that's how you can get when it comes to trying to get your color power. So, anyway, potentially though, that's it. I just somehow literally just beat several bosses in the quickest time imaginable. Although, unlike in Sonic Rush though, sometimes it's almost like a waiting game, and that can be a little bit of a applies to the forms of Sonic Rush Adventure for some aspects, but relatively speaking though, you can breezily try to defeat certain bosses in the quickest way imaginable. So, anyways, let's talk about the fact that when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes review scored of Saving Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie, well, it did somehow review the actual film pretty badly, within 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, compared to IMDb, which actually gives the actual film 4 out of 10, which as a result, because my goodness, I found that film such a massive downgrade compared to the forms of how it does on the previous 3 films. Well, again, I'll give Sponge on a Run some credit for the unique visual style, but aside from all that stuff though, yeah, I honestly need to watch the first film again, and maybe the second film for the better, for the likes of the forms of Sponge Out of Water, because obviously those about the fact that those 2 films in particular, as I mentioned this earlier, are pretty good. So, not the best for the second film to me though, but it does have its, you know what I'm saying, with all this praise and stuff like that. So, there we go folks, Sweet Mountain is completely done, and I was really so close able to actually achieve myself the S rank, but that's just mainly because I just keep on getting hit most of the time, but I digress. So with that being said folks, is that we're getting endings up this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic Colors for the Nintendo DS version, is that we're about to be going into the next level, which appears to be Starlight Carnival. So I'll see you guys until next Saturday. Later fellas.